Hi, Karen Flaherty here from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about the gate 26, which is all about integrity. So for the next few days, we've got the sun in the gate 26, which is the gate of integrity. And it started late on December 8th, and it goes until December 14th in the morning. And the Earth at this time is in gate 45, which is called the king or queen. And so the 45 is right up here coming off the throat, and the 26 is coming off the will center. And so again, this week we have the 2034 defining the throat and the sacral, and the 6124 defining the head and the ajna. Beyond that, we will only have one other thing going on because it basically goes into the gate 10 in a few days. And so what we have by December 12th is that Mercury moves into the gate 10. And so it gives us just a little more energy. The G center will be defined for the rest of those few days. But it just gives us two different channels and the G center defined. So that might feel a little different for you, probably not too much. But Mercury is in the gate 10, and so these centers stay defined through the rest of the week. So with the sun in the gate 26 and the earth in the gate 45, as I said, the gate 26 is the gate of integrity. In the I Ching, it's called the taming power of the great, or the egoist in the original. And so this is the maximization of the power of memory applied to the nurturing of continuity. So what that means basically is that we've got this gate coming off the will center. It is associated with the thymus gland physiologically, and it is all about integrity, or the opposite, manipulation. So we think of it, some people call it the trickster, where on the one hand, it can be very manipulative and tricking people into things. On the other hand, it can be very full of integrity. And there's really not a lot of difference between the two, because they're both about educating people and letting them know what's available. It's just that some people use it for their own devices and to basically forward their own agenda, right, with their will, as opposed to a will for or a purpose that's much more encompassing. And so the incarnation crosses this week are the crosses of rulership, because it does include the gate 45, the trickster, as I mentioned, and confrontation. And so, and I've actually, it's interesting, while they call it the trickster, I've never actually done a session with anybody who has that in their cross, in their incarnation cross. The gate 45 is in the earth, and this is typically called the king or the queen. It's gathering together, or the gatherer in the original I Ching. And this is about service, really. It's about leadership. It's about helping others to get the resources they need as part of the kingdom, so to speak. And so this is the natural and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. And so it's gathering together the forces that you need for a community, so that you have the resources, you've got the people who can do the work, you've got the people who can lead, you've got all the pieces of the puzzle, basically, that you need to make the community work. That's what this is about. It's that kind of leadership, that kind of very beneficent leadership, I call it, but it's also very, it's a well-respected kind of energy. And it generally does good things. Most people with the gate 45 in their chart have a consistent energy that allows them to be the leader, that allows them to help people in a very generous way, and really make sure that they're okay, right? Taking good care of them. In the Gene Keys, dominance is the shadow, because it can be a forceful dominance. Synergy is the gift, and communion is the CD. And so what the graphic for the gate 26, or the Gene Key 26, is great changes are made up of many, many tiny changes, invisible changes. And so the shadow is pride, the gift is artfulness, and the CD is invisibility. And so the shadow as pride relates to the fact that gate 26 does come off the will center. But this pride is the typical pride, someone being, kind of proud and holding up their britches and having a boastful kind of way about them. That's the typical kind of pride. Then there's another pride that he talks about, which can be much more manipulative, much more covert, much more guilting and blaming and putting people down. There's that type of manipulation too. The pride can also be manipulative in a way that's very overt, where people can tell with that, boastfulness that you are talking about your possessions or your wealth or your boat or your house or things like that. And that doesn't usually sit well with people. In fact, the boastfulness usually has the opposite effect. The gift is artfulness, in that you can actually become quite have a lot of integrity with this gate and be artful about it, right? So that you're actually, it is part of the business circuit, and it is, as we call it, the closing gate. And it's about having the integrity to actually work with someone who you might be selling something to, for example, that whether it's a product or service or yourself, it can be the kind of discussion that's very artful, right? That is telling them about the product or service so that they understand it, they're educated about it, and they can make a decision in the end about whether they actually want it or not. It's not your typical salesperson, right? It's not the used car salesman where you walk in the door and they're trying to sell you from the moment you enter. It's not that kind of energy if used, to the greater good. So the artfulness can be actually very charming. It can be willful. But people have the choice, once they hear all about it, whether to actually purchase it or not. So Richard also says you can identify the 26th shadow in a person because they simply cannot relax even for a single moment. And we probably all know people who are like this, when where they're just kind of jumpy. They're full of energy. They're full of themselves usually. And any kind of salesperson like that can be the trickster, can be the kind of the snake oil salesman. They get that reputation because of the low end of this gate. And it's not pretty. It's not the kind of thing that you usually want to be around. And so most of us can't wait to get out of, their clutches, right? So he also says the 26th gift celebrates your ego without self-judgment and in full awareness. So when you can kind of let go of the ego, be not judging yourself, but in full awareness that you can really help somebody and allow them to know about the product or service that you're talking about in a way that allows them to make the choice, right? It's not about pushing, it's not about forcing, it's not about having anybody walk away with something that they don't want. It's truly about allowing them to make the decision and having the integrity to step away gracefully. We've got a number of people we've got a number of people this week with the gate 26. And I think that if you look at this list, you'll see that most of them had a good deal of integrity. In fact, if you look at Chief Justice John Jay, I believe he was one of the first Chief Justices in the United States, and he has one of the John Jay College named after him in New York City. He's all about integrity, right? Just being all about being a judge and having the integrity to be so well regarded that a school was named after him. Frank Sinatra, Taylor Swift, Dick Van Dyke, Osho, John Milton, and Tip O'Neill, Kirk Douglas, a lot of Dame Judi Dench, who I've always admired as an actress, Alexandra Solzhenitsyn, the wonderful writer, and just people who were able to make their way by selling themselves, right, with integrity, and basically live lives that were well regarded by others. This week in history, a number of different things occurred. Some of them had to do with integrity. Not surprisingly, right? The governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, was arrested on federal charges in 2008. In 1942, the war halted civilian car production at Ford. Not so much about integrity, but about business. In 1972, the Challenger, the lunar lander for Apollo 17, touched down on the moon's surface. That was the last time that men visited the moon. That was in 1972. In 2008, Bernie Madoff was arrested and charged with securities fraud in what became a $50 billion Ponzi scheme. In 2000, the U.S. Supreme Court announced its decision in Bush v. Gore, and so President Bush became president effectively. And then in 1911, the South Pole was discovered. And in 2012, unfortunately, the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, had the tragedy of children and adults being shot on December 14th. So with that, don't be surprised this week if issues of integrity come up, whether they're in the news or in your own life or around Christmas decisions or holiday decisions. It's the kind of thing that will creep into discussions, and don't be surprised when it does. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Be well.